two interesting political pointers have emerged in the last couple of days, sort of linking Congress and the BJP. Congress on the one hand, BJP on the other. Both have come from the northern states. One from Punjab, one from Haryana. Both states where Congress has been in power and still sees chance of coming back in power. In one, the BJP is in power, that's Haryana. In the other, BJP just has 2 seats and still has very unlikely prospects of getting power. So what has happened? First of all, Sunil Jakhar has joined the BJP in Punjab. Sunil Jakhar was the head of the Congress in the state, but he got very upset, he got estranged, and chances are that you've seen or you've read about his very angry statement on Facebook. We also carried this in an uncut version as part of our ThePrint uncut series. So you can see that. I'm sharing a link with you. In Haryana, Kuldeep Bishnoi happens to be the son of Bhajan Lal. Kuldeep Bishnoi, who's a senior Congress leader, he suddenly went and met Manohar Lal Khattar, the BJP's chief minister. So that raised eyebrows. All the Congress party and its people are trying to say, no, it was routine meeting, etc., etc. But no such thing is routine in politics. As we keep saying all the time, दिल से दिल मिलने का कोई कारण होगा, बिना कारण कोई बात नहीं होती. Politics में किसी को किसी से मिलने का, people don't just go and call on one another just like that. So there possibly was something to this. Now, what is common between the two? The common factor between the two, we are not saying that Kuldeep Bishnoi is going to BJP. It's just that this pointer emerged. Sunil Jakhar has gone to BJP. Both Sunil Jakhar and Kuldeep Bishnoi represent important political dynasties within the Congress, or what I might describe as sub-dynasties within the Congress. Sunil Jakhar, he said, even in his parting statement, he said that how pained he is breaking a 50-year relationship. So when he says 50-year relationship, he's actually referring to his father's time. So his late father, Chaudhry Balram Jakhar, was a very endearing politician. He was a speaker of Lok Sabha. He had many cabinet positions in the central government and was the preeminent Jat leader in the Congress party. He had also contested elections from Rajasthan. So this is the Jakhar dynasty. So Jakhar dynasty, which was one of the pillars of the Congress party, particularly for the Congress party's Hindu vote and its Jat vote elsewhere also, Jakhar dynasty has now gone away from the Congress party to the BJP. Kuldeep Bishnoi represents the Bhajan Lal dynasty. Bhajan Lal again has been chief minister for the Congress also. We know the famous story of how Bhajan Lal overnight became the government of another party. He defected lock, stock and speaker to the other side. So he represents powerful Bhajan Lal dynasty. So is another Congress sub-dynasty also flirting with the BJP now? Now, I'll take you back to 2013, to a national interest article that I wrote in 2013 in the Indian Express. And I will share a link with you of that article also. What did that article say? The headline was "One Dynasty Dimming." What that meant was the dimming dynasty was obviously the Congress, the Gandhi dynasty. This was 2013, 2013. So I had said in that article that, look, the Congress is still owned by a dynasty, by the Gandhi family. And Congress people know that without Gandhi family, Congress party can't stay together, because the moment there is Narasimha Rao in charge or Sitaram Kesri in charge, a rebellion breaks out, party breaks out into rashes, immune reactions start. It needs the authority of the Gandhis to stay together. That's been so for a long time now. That's been so for 60 years. The difference now, we saw it, say, about 10 years back in 2013, was that unlike the Gandhis of the past, unlike leaders of the dynasty in the past, that is Nehru, Indira, even Rajiv, today's Gandhis were incapable of getting votes for their party men. So they were essential, they were indispensable, they kept the party together, but they could not get you the votes. So you had to get your own votes and win. And one of the reasons that happened was that while this was a dynastic party and had not developed talent elsewhere, besides these mini dynasties which had come up, the fact is, by that point, that a lot of other dynasties had risen in India's states, and we had listed some. And these are not definitive lists. You can always find one or that I leave out, but I will just tell you the ones that we had listed. These are the non-Congress dynasties. So we said that look at the non-Congress dynasties which have come up. The Abdullahs and the Muftis in Kashmir, the Badals in Punjab, Mulayam Singh Yadav in Uttar Pradesh, Lalu Yadav in Bihar, Chandrababu Naidu in Andhra, then Andhra was all together, Jagan also in Andhra, although he branched out as an independent dynasty later. There was Karunanidhi, they were the Gaudas, Karunanidhi in Tamil Nadu, Gaudas in Karnataka, Thakres in Maharashtra, Pawars in Maharashtra, Navin Patnaik in Odisha, and also the Sangma dynasty and many others. And we said that each one of these dynasties cannot take national power. They cannot threaten the Congress nationally. But at the same time, Congress is incapable of defeating them in their own pocket boroughs, in their own states. So, in a Bihar election, Lalu may be defeated by Nitish Kumar, but yet his vote share will be much higher than that of the Congress party. Over time, we have seen that even in Maharashtra, NCP, Sharad Pawar's NCP has gone ahead of the Congress party. So, all these mini dynasties had come up elsewhere. Within the Congress also, many sub-dynasties had risen, and we had taken note of that also. See what's happened to those dynasties now. Let me first list the ones that I had quoted then. So there was Amrinder Singh, Amrinder, wife and son, all three were of the Congress party. There were the Hudas in Haryana, Kiran Chaudhary, who represented the Bansilal dynasty in Haryana, Shelja, who represented another Chaudhary Dalbir Singh, who was a Dalit leader, his dynasty in Haryana, Sheila Dikshit and son in Delhi, Veerbhadra Singh and wife in Himachal. His wife actually now is the Congress party's leader in the state. Sachin Pilot, Jitin Prasada, Jyotiraditya Scindia, RPN Singh, Milind Devra, Pranab Mukherjee with his son and his daughter, and even Narayan Rane, who was Congressy come lately, but he had a dynasty of his own. So we said that Congress party has these sub-dynasties. Each one is either capable of winning elections on their own, or in any case has to fend for itself, because the Gandhis can't get votes for them. Now, what these two developments have underlined to us is how this situation has changed radically and what's happened to these sub-dynasties within the Congress party. So let us see what's happened to most of them. If I leave out the odd one, that's not intentional. That's because this is not a totally comprehensive list. So if you send me a correction, I will update. So we know where Scindia has gone. Scindia is not just a second generation dynasty, in the sense that Jyotiraditya's father, Madhav Rao, who unfortunately died in an aircraft crash, they were not a two-generation dynasty. Even their grandmother, which is Vijayaraje Scindia, who later became the leading light of the Janasangh and BJP, she had contested elections and won from the Congress party in 1957 in Guna, 57 and I think 1962. By 67, she had joined the Swatantra party and then joined Janasangh. So they were a third generation dynasty in the Congress that has now completely broken away and is in the BJP. So we are particularly counting those sub-dynasties which the Congress party has lost to the BJP. Then RPN Singh. RPN Singh is a third generation dynast. Jitin Prasada, his father Jitendra Prasad was a leading light of the Congress, also seemed to be very close to the Gandhi family. And even his father, that is Jitin Prasad's grandfather, also was a Congress MLC. So that was also a three-generation Congress sub-dynasty which has gone to the BJP. So Scindia, RPN Singh, Jitin Prasada, Sunil Jakhar, we just told you, is a second-generation dynast who has gone. Amrinder Singh has not gone to the BJP. But Amrinder Singh has gone to form his own party, which is an ally of the BJP. And when Sunil Jakhar announced that he was joining the BJP, Amrinder Singh put out this tweet welcoming that decision, saying there is no place in the Congress party for self-respecting honest people. Again, Narayan Rane. Okay, Narayan Rane, as we told you, was a Congressee completely. He had come from Shiv Sena, but he was a minister in the Congress party. But he left, he formed his own party. He is now not in the BJP, he has his own party, but he is a minister in the NDA cabinet as an ally of the BJP. And his son Nitish is in the BJP. So that's one more sort of new dynasty, sub-dynasty that has gone away from the Congress to the BJP. Then in Haryana, we have Birinder Singh Chaudhary. So Chaudhary Birinder Singh was a respected, tall leader in Haryana. He is also from the family, he is a descendant of Sir Chotu Ram, the great famous Jat leader of the past. He and his son are now both in the BJP. He was a minister earlier, he is no longer a minister. His son is an MP in Lok Sabha. So they are both in BJP. That's one more Congress, old Congress dynasty gone to the BJP. Then in Haryana itself, there is an interesting case of a dynasty which we cannot classically describe as a Congress dynasty, but there's a little juicy twist there. So this is Rao Inderjit Singh, who served on both sides of the fence. He is now with the BJP. Rao Inderjit Singh, who is an Ahir leader or a Yadav leader from southern Haryana. His father, Rao Birinder Singh, was the chief minister of Haryana. He became the chief minister of Haryana in 1967 from what was then called Vishal Haryana Party. And you know what? He coined the expression Ayaram Gayaram. That's because Gayalal, who was an MLA, was defecting all the time from one party to the other. Until then, there wasn't yet the anti-defection law. So Mr. Gayalal would come to this side or that side. So he became a kind of, he personified the politics of defection. So Rao Birinder Singh it was who coined the expression Ayaram Gayaram. It just so happens HPCC chief is Mr. Gayalal's son, that is Mr. Uday Bhan. So India's champion defector, after whom the expression Ayaram Gayaram was coined, even he has founded a dynasty of his own. That dynasty is now in the Congress party. It so happens that Rao Birinder Singh's dynasty is in the BJP. Now, I don't know if it's a net loss or net gain. You come to that conclusion. Then if you go ahead from here, see some more. Bahuguna family. Vati Nandan Bahuguna was a very close associate of Indira Gandhi's. Then he fell out. Then he came back, and his family also, his children, particularly his son Vijay Bahuguna, who later became chief minister of, he was a high court judge, later became chief minister of Uttarakhand for the Congress party. His daughter Rita Bahuguna Joshi, who became an MP, a junior minister at the center, then went to the BJP. Today, both his son and daughter, that is Vijay Bahuguna and Rita Bahuguna, are in the BJP. So that's another Congress sub-dynasty subsumed in the BJP. Just a juicy little tidbit. Rita Bahuguna's son Mayank Joshi, on the eve of the last assembly elections in Uttar Pradesh, joined Samajwadi Party. So one foot is still on the other side, but nobody is with the Congress party. Again, see how this sub-dynasty is now prospering in the BJP. Vijay Bahuguna's, while Rita Bahuguna Joshi's son has gone to Samajwadi Party, Vijay Bahuguna's son is in the BJP. In Uttarakhand, he's an MLA. His name is Saurabh Bahuguna. Again, Jagan, we know what happened to the Jagan dynasty. It was a YSR dynasty. Unwittingly, Congress tried to fight it because they were so power drunk in the second term of the UPA. So they decided to ride roughshod over the power of the dynasty that YSR had founded. And they lost everything to his son Jagan. Jagan left them. So that dynasty also left, but it did not join the BJP. Although you will find that in parliament, more often than not, on the more tricky legislations, they vote with the BJP, and chances are even that for the forthcoming presidential elections, they will support the BJP's candidate. I'm not saying it will surely happen, but it's very likely. Then you go elsewhere. Sushmita Dev, the daughter of Santosh Mohan Dev, again a veteran Congress leader. She's gone to TMC. So Mausam Noor, former Congress MP, who carried on the baton for the ABA Ghani Khan Chaudhary dynasty in West Bengal. She's now in TMC. And what happened to Pranab Mukherjee's family and his dynasty? Pranab Mukherjee passed away. He obviously left politics, active politics, after he demitted office as president, but of his two children, both were in the Congress party. One, his son is now in TMC, and his daughter has now decided, at least for now, to give up active politics. So once again, that's one more sub-dynasty lost. So what's happened with the Congress party is that over time they've lost out political capital, sub-dynasty by sub-dynasty. I will count some more for you. Lalit Narayan Mishra, the former railway minister, very controversial during the emergency, who was assassinated in a bomb attack in Bihar. Lalit Narayan Mishra's grandson, Rishi Mishra, is now in RJD, not in the Congress party. So Rajesh Pati and Lalitesh Pati, the son, the grandson and the great-grandson of the great Kamlapati Tripathi. He was a stalwart of the Congress party. He was also appointed working president when Rajiv Gandhi was prime minister and the president of the party. Both of them are now with the TMC. Now I can go on and on counting. There is no end to it. Rohit Shekhar, the son of former Congress Chief Minister of UP and Uttarakhand, Narayan Tiwari, and again a stalwart leader. He's right now in the BJP. Then the Tripura royal family, which was a very key figure in the Congress party there, they have now gone away. In fact, the descendant there, Pradyot Dev Burman, was the Congress's chief in the state, but he's left it. He's now set up his own party, essentially aiming for the tribal vote in that state. Akhilesh Singh, the leader from the same Amethi Raebareli area, he was a Congress leader, stalwart in that area. His daughter Aditi Singh has joined the BJP, has become an MLA. Once again, Ratna Singh. Ratna Singh is a former Congress MP and the daughter of Raja Dinesh Singh, who used to be External Affairs Minister and had many senior positions in the Congress party under the Gandhi family. She, in 2019, joined the BJP. And just in case you think we haven't talked enough about Maharashtra, think about Balasa Vikhe Patil, who was one of the senior most leaders of the Congress party and a union minister. His son, Radhakrishnan Vikhe Patil, he was leader of the opposition in Maharashtra Assembly when BJP was in power the last time. But in 2019, he defected to the BJP. That is the leader of the opposition himself defected to the BJP. After him, his son Sujay Vikhe Patil is also in BJP now and an MP. So once again, old dynasty in the Congress party, very strong voter base in a particular area of Maharashtra. Both generations now, which are active in politics, have joined the BJP. So once again, you can see that this phenomenon of Congresses, it's like Congress is sitting in an hourglass and sub-dynasty by sub-dynasty, it's dripping into the BJP. And it's a very strong phenomenon and it's redefining Indian politics. So even today, if you see BJP's chief ministers, at least 4 of them are straightforward from the Congress party. They are imports from the Congress party. Manik Saha, who's just become chief minister in Tripura, Biren Singh in Manipur, Pema Khandu in Arunachal, and Himanta Biswa Sarma in Assam. All 4 are in the northeast, but in the course of time, don't be surprised if more such become BJP's chief ministers or central cabinet ministers elsewhere also, because that is the direction in which national politics is heading.